Hi, it's Ed. Welcome to another edition of Ed Talks. Thanks for joining us. I know you have a lot of different things that you can listen to or watch, and you've chosen to be with us. So I just want to thank you. And today I want to introduce you to a friend and colleague of mine, Dev Singh. Dev, welcome to Ed Talks.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it could be really interesting because a lot of people always wonder about entrepreneurship and leadership and starting companies and growing companies, and how do you get there? How do you do that? And your background really lends itself super well to this particular conversation. And in terms of when we first met, we actually first met in person in Chicago at a Becker's conference, I believe. And so we had connected. We had been doing some work together, and we had a dinner. We hosted some CMIOs from some fantastic organizations and some beautiful location in downtown Chicago. It was a really cool evening, and I think everyone really got a lot out of the fellowship and the discussion and talking things from all sorts of life, including tech and how tech is really enabling sort of the clinical experience. But Deb, one thing I wanted to ask you. Tell us about a great customer experience you have. It doesn't have to be healthcare or tech. It could be anything. Like, what's a recent great customer experience you've had?
Yeah, no, thanks, Ed. So I hope I'm audible and everything, so you can hear me just well. Um, so the very latest one, and a good one, was with a biopharma major. We own their entire AI journey, and they actually started like 2 years ago with us in terms of the entire AI-led and automation-led transformation. And we created the entire enterprise roadmap for them, and then studied as to how each of their business functions can really leverage some of these emerging tech that's all around us today. And it was quite heartening to hear from their chairman and CEO. Just kind of last week we were connecting over the year gone by, and he said that they have really driven a lot of benefits because of this particular journey that they partnered with us in. We set up their internal AI innovation COE. We created chatbots for touchless order intake and enterprise self-service. We helped them modernize their data to cloud, leveraging the state-of-art services, and generated new insights that help in decision making and enabling a lot of AI and ML solutions for them. Their entire AI and automation-led cloud services is something that we also created. So this was a client that 2 years ago was not using any of these technologies, and today they consider themselves as quite advanced in terms of their adoption, and it has helped them, in his words, in the words of this chairman of the board, it has helped them generate 15% in revenue growth and help them reduce their operational costs by 34.5% since we began. And then it has also helped them improve some other things like regulatory compliance, etc. So that was quite heartening because he chose the year-end message to me in a way that really resonates with the whole mission for which we set up AiRO in the first place.
Yeah, no, that's a great customer experience story. On a personal side, tell us, is there anything when you were growing up that your parents sort of forced you to do that you're like, you didn't really want to, but you went ahead and did it because it's your parents? But now in hindsight, you look back and you're like, I'm glad my parents sort of built that into me.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very unique environment. Both my mom and dad were professors in the same university in India. However, my dad is a very left brain, or was a very left brain person, very science and math and engineering oriented, and he was a professor of chemistry back then. My mom, on the other hand, very right brained, creative. She was a professor of music and language and arts. And so therefore I grew up in an environment where both it was, let's just call it a very balanced approach to my academics and also life in general. It was a very academically intensive environment. And back then, perhaps the best way, and I grew up in the 70s and 80s India, and back then the best way for upward mobility was to do well in your studies. And so I'm sort of blessed. I don't know what I would have done or where I would be today if they did not what's the best politically correct word to use, force me to to study more than I intended to.
No, that's great. Yeah, that is a really interesting mix, right? For your parents, both professors, but yeah, one sort of the sciences and one the arts. That would have been a very interesting home to grow up in. And I can see why, you know, you have a fondness for your family and also how it's helped shape you as a founder, as a CEO, and so forth. So tell us a little bit more now about your journey to where you are today, and you know, as a CEO. You can go on the personal side, professional side, however you'd like to share it. But basically, you know, what brought you to where you are today as a CEO of your own company?
Yeah, so when I was growing up back in the 70s and 80s, India was a pretty different place than it is today. We grew up with rotary phones. There was a 24-month waiting line in case you wanted to purchase a scooter or a bike back then. Color TV was yet to be introduced back in India back then. So as I mentioned, you know, I did reasonably well in my studies and academically. You know, I was blessed to be selected in the right engineering school, which was government run and subsidized. I was also, you know, fortunate enough to be selected for one of the top B schools in India. And back then, all these were competitive examinations, still are, by the way, in India. And it takes a lot of hard work to be selected and to get in, because the line is too big. My first job professionally was with back in 1997 with TCS, and I was a mainframe developer pre Y2K. Mainframe, JCS, COBOL was my life. And but then during late 90s and early 2000s, the India IT market and India in general, from business standpoint, was just about taking off. So we were sort of, you know, part of that whole momentum, as you would say, in terms of getting ingrained in the world of IT. I have worked with a lot of global SIs since then. HCL, Wipro, Dell, Aero Systems, and FPT Software was my last gig. You know, but you know, and I've worked with them across the world. I'm pretty fortunate to have been exposed to multiple cultures, diverse cultures, countries, people, languages, and above all, what it does is it exposes you and opens you up to all these different opportunities that the world has to offer. And that's something that I feel I was pretty fortunate to, from where I began my life in a very small town in the hinterlands of India to where we are today.
Yeah, no, that's super fascinating journey. And as you alluded to, you know, you worked for some global systems integrators, some really big companies. How did that help shape you as an entrepreneur? Because as you were sharing, you worked for these big SIs for many years, and then ultimately you went off and started your own company. So how did that help you? Did working for those type of organizations help shape you and enable you as an entrepreneur?
Well, absolutely. The first thing that you get to learn is how to scale. I mean, these companies, if you really go back in time, they were growing at 40% CAGR year over year over year, decade over decade. I mean, that's miraculous. I'm using the word, you know, more than marvelous, more than amazing. It's miraculous. Like, how do you manage that growth? So what I learned there was these companies were run by some of the most amazing founders and entrepreneurs, and you know, today they're all philanthropists, you know, 30, 40 years later. But back then they were rock stars, right? And so you learn how to grow, but what you also learn is how to manage growth. When you are expanding so quickly, it leaves stretch marks. How do you manage to not to grow in a standardized way? How do you retain people? when you're growing so fast? How do you retain clients? You can get a client, but then how do you keep them happy so they continue to grow with you year over year over year and trust you with bigger, better projects, more challenging? I learned that there. That was foundational for me in terms of, and of course, what it also, when you're part of this environment, you develop something that's really critical for an entrepreneur. You develop network.
Yeah.
Not just experience, but network. And that comes handy if you ever are to take that plunge at the stage of life that I did.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wish you would have known before you jumped in? So you had all this great experience, like you're sharing with these SIs, these integrators, big companies that help launch you successfully as an entrepreneur. Is there one thing maybe that you didn't learn, or you did learn, but maybe didn't, apply it as quickly as you wanted to as an entrepreneur?
So I'm going to tell you a really true story, and very quickly. So when I started my journey, I already had 17 years of work experience behind me, global experience at leadership levels. I built a list of 2,000 people who would be useful for us in our journey, right? Some of them as a potential client, some of them as potential associates, employees, partners, etc., etc. We just finished 6 years. So it's been 6 years that since I created that spreadsheet when I started my entrepreneurial journey, right? Guess how many of those 2,000 people are still involved in the journey or helped along the way? I can literally count them on one hand. So what you don't learn when you're working for someone else is that folks you consider friends and associates or potential partners may not exactly be that, because they're associated with you because you're part of a bigger brand.
Yeah.
Right? As you start your own journey, your friends will change. You will get new friends. You will make new partners. You will create new associates. You will have new learnings. You need to be, as an entrepreneur, be prepared for that. It's a little bit of a disillusionment, yes. But then disillusionment will come enlightenment, and will hopefully come a lot of progress down the line. So that's one thing you don't appreciate as much when you're under the cover of a big umbrella versus when the umbrella goes away.
Yeah. No, that really resonates, as a CIO, when I helped a lot of people, I didn't create a list like you did, but had I done something similar, I helped a lot of people. A lot of people helped me. I help a lot of people. Once I left being a CIO and went to sort of working for a vendor, and some of those same people that you would have thought would have been there for me because I helped them, gone, disappeared. And I realized, I don't take it personal. I realized it was just part of what you're describing, because they associated with you with this other entity. And then since you're no longer part of that entity, you were basically on your own. You had to start, developing this new network and stuff. And it is an interesting experience. So let's talk about AiRO Digital Labs. So what was the impetus? So again, 17 years, very successful career. You start this company. What was like the trigger that said, I'm going to start my own company?
Yeah, so there's, I've always wanted to become an entrepreneur simply because I saw my dad do that pretty successfully. So that he was the first successful entrepreneur I saw back in the day at a smaller scale with much bigger constraints than we face back in, late 60s. But he made it, right? So that was always the case. I wanted to do something on my own. But with that came, it's all about timing, end of the day. And I said, all right, you need to have some experience, some, financial freedom, independence to be able to take, everyone's got family. You got to make sure that they don't pay the price for your decisions. So I waited. But then come 2016, I was president at a company called FPT Software. I was running a big business back then. The realization was quite palpable that the industry is demanding something quite different from what we were offering. And it was just not we as a big SI, the one that I was working on, but the entire SI industry, what we were offering to the clients back then, which were CIOs such as yourself, Ed, you were actually asking us, how can we help you in experimenting more in emerging technologies like robotic process automation, computer vision, voice-based technologies, image recognition, and I'm deliberately avoiding the word AI. Let's call it machine learning, right? Because back then that's what there was, and there was like the need for someone more nimble to and willing to take that extra risk along with the customer to basically then go ahead and say, all right, I'm going to co-experiment with you, Mr. Customer. I may not get paid now. And by the way, even when I get paid, I may get paid small bucks in the beginning, but I'm willing to take that journey along with you. I'm willing to pilot things with you, create your center of excellence, because I know that in a few years' time, the payout from all of that is going to be too big, because that's all you're going to be spending on versus what you're spending on today, right? That opportunity, my realization was that it's wide open. I have a few years' time ahead of me. That window of opportunity is closing pretty quickly in the next few years. And I'm talking 2016, 2017 is what I was thinking about, that by 2023, 2024, everybody is going to be singing the AI tune, right? But I've got that limited window of opportunities to create something from scratch and to become relevant by that time, right? And that was the impetus. I said, I'm not getting any younger. Let's go do it.
Yeah.
So that's why I created AiRO.
Tell us about the unique name. I love the name, and sort of the brand messaging. Like, what do you want when people hear the name? What do you want them to think about?
Right. AI stands for AI, AiRO stands for robotic process automation. These two were my favorite technologies back when I started. That was the genesis of the name AiRO. Digital is everything that is not AI and AiRO, right? So I did not want to be excluded from, back then there was mobility was the big thing and stuff. So let's also try that. Labs denotes someone who is willing to co-experiment and take risks, right? So that was AiRO Digital Labs. But behind the scenes, I had already registered the company, and again, an interesting anecdote. 2 days later, one of my friends says, hey, interesting name. Have you done a name check on Google? Does AiRO stand for something good or bad or nothing? Right? So very hesitatingly, I did that search. Thankfully, we got lucky there. AiRO stands for, in the Greek language, to rise, to elevate. And we said, all right, that sounds great. At least it doesn't stand for something bad in any other language. So that's the genesis.
Yeah, no, it's a great name, and I also love the labs concept for the reasons that you stated. So I think it's pretty cool. And you also serve multiple verticals. Like in the opening, you talked about biopharma. What other verticals do you serve? You obviously healthcare, but are there some other verticals that you serve?
Yes, we do. So healthcare providers, healthcare payers, pharma, life sciences, medical devices, biotech. When you go, farther than that, we're talking about manufacturing as a sector, high tech, retail, and banking. These are the sectors that we work, and actually CPG as well to a certain extent.
Is there one thing from one of these other sectors that would help providers? So like when you're helping a customer or talking to a prospect, you have the ability now to know what's happening in other industries that may be a little bit more advanced and bringing that to healthcare. Is there one maybe theme or concept that some other industries are doing maybe a little bit more faster than healthcare that would be helpful for healthcare?
So yeah, I mean, each industry is different. Each company within those industries are different. So, but besides that, which everybody knows, I think what we have learned is that, I'm going to give you some examples perhaps that help. So for a healthcare provider, we built a data lakehouse to generate additional revenues from their pharmacy, which is great. because that helps them generate a new revenue stream. We also deployed multiple AI-led solutions across the RCM function for as an engagement model. So that has helped this healthcare provider. But then that's where they start. Like, when you say RCM, rev cycle management, yeah, that's kind of, a side thing. When you start thinking about core and transforming the core of a certain business through emerging tech and AI, that's when some of the other industries are taking the risk in a bigger, better way than healthcare providers are taking. For example, for a healthcare payer, we help them in their journey to cloud and create a single source of the healthcare data, which is by eliminating your data silos and their modernization to a native cloud and API consumption strategy in the hyperscale cloud. Now, what that did is that once they were all set, and this was almost all of their healthcare data, this was a regional payer. What then we did on top of it was, because we had already structured the foundation in a certain way, we then structured the foundation ready to be harnessed for bigger, better algorithms around machine learning and AI. So their ability to use their data, which is now set in a certain manner, to actually create better, bigger insights for their operations was much higher. But this is just a healthcare provider and payer. If you go into there's a very large CPG company that we worked with. They basically were worried a lot. It's a retail and CPG company, both. The ability to observe a customer as they walk through the storefront, inside the store, the way their eye movements across the aisle, across the different shelves happen, should determine product placement. The highest profitability, the highest margin product should be placed where the customer is looking the most, right? How do you do that? So you have to deploy image recognition, live sometimes, and you have to obviously do a lot of other mumbo jumbo stuff to get to a level where at the end of each day, per store, you are able to determine that, okay, this is what you need to be placing in a certain shelf. Now, how does that apply to a pharma company or a healthcare provider, et cetera, is something that we can absolutely keep talking on and on, but I don't want to take much of your time today on this particular question. But yes, healthcare providers in general have been relatively slow in adoption of technology. And there's a lot that other industries can contribute. End of the day, we're all human. We're all patient at some point in time. We all need healthcare providers to up the game, right?
Yeah. So, Dev, it sounds like if you're a healthcare provider, and you've got we all have all of us have challenges. Everyone has challenges. Clearly, they could speak with you, and given your experience, all your entire career and cross-vertical experience, you could come in and basically consult with these organizations and then bring this knowledge from other industries and capabilities that you all have and develop solutions that'll help people, whether it's, like the example you gave earlier, whether it's the AI evolution, robotic automation to improve efficiencies, anything, right? There's a lot of different areas where you all help your customers.
Yeah. So, learning from other verticals, I know I spoke a little bit about that in the previous section, but there's a lot of challenges, and a lot of those challenges are around the customer. And the biggest leap that the healthcare provider sector has taken in the recent times is start calling the patient as a consumer or a customer, right? That is a shift in mindset that was very much needed.
Yeah.
Now, therefore, as a driver of that, as a follow through to that, the first thing you want to do is you want to create a better customer-centric approach, right? Patient centricity or customer centricity. And you can leverage the emerging tech, to really to really incorporate that in your operations, right from the patient check-in to patient scheduling to actually discharge and post-discharge, the entire gamut of processes. There's so much that can be done just to make sure that the customer/patient feels well cared for and well appreciated. There are, if we can take examples of some of the other industries that take really good care of their customers, airlines, loyalty programs, we all fly a lot. I am appreciated every time I, hop onto a United Airlines because I'm a global services man. But it took me a lot to go to global services. Otherwise, I would have spent my money somewhere else if I was not appreciated when I was not global services. And that's the key.
Yeah.
Then you take other examples. I can go on and on. You can take examples from banking industry. The whole patient privacy, right? Yes, patient data is private. It should be protected. It should never be leaked. It should never be breached, etc., etc. Guess which other industry you can learn best practices from? Banking. Right? There is so much you can learn from banking, so much that, and banking has been at the forefront of adopting technology to really ensure these two aspects: patient centricity, customer centricity, and privacy, right?
Yeah.
So if you really start looking elsewhere, you will see those pools of best practices that a healthcare provider can absolutely adopt.
So, for sure. Yeah, and there's certainly a lot of pressure from the consumer and customer as well for healthcare now to adopt some of these practices that we're experiencing in other industries. So, as I always like to end with a leadership question. As you continue to lead your organization, what's the one thing that's helped you the most? What's one leadership trait or capability or skill that you may have learned or maybe honed through this experience that's been most important?
You're not a leader till people follow you. People will follow you if you're worth following.
Right.
Now, that's a big motherhood statement. But what I'm truly saying is, we are in people business. End of the day.
Yeah.
You can be a lone warrior, but that's all you will ever be. If you want to build a business, if you want to build something that your clients will really appreciate, that's something, then you need to appreciate the team that's helping you build it. And appreciation cannot be just words. It has to be actions, it has to be gestures, and it has to be constant.
Yeah. That's right? Good.
So, that's all. Yeah. That's all I have to say. I can. You asked me for one, so I told you one.
Yeah. Well, I know you have a dozen, but yeah, that's a really good one. At the end of the day, it's all about people and it's about the team. Hey, Deb, we covered a lot in a short period of time. We talked about where you sort of how you grew up, some of the things that you learned, the evolution of your career, your organization, the multiple industries that you serve, what you're doing in healthcare. Gave several examples of the transformative capabilities of your organization. Is there something that we missed or anything that you want to double down on? I'll give you the last word.
Thank you. So I'm going to end with something which may sound a bit controversial, but it's actually pretty intuitive. Why is the US healthcare so costly? I mean, I can get the same procedure done very, very cost-effective way in a part of the world that's not very far away from US, right? Why are we so costly? Is there something that can be done with the help of these new technologies that will reduce the level of costs to a certain extent and increase the level of patient centricity on the other hand, both at the same time?
Yeah.
And that is, I would say, $1 trillion question, which I think that AI can solve. You can reduce costs drastically. You don't need to go to a low-cost location for your IT or for your other operations. You can actually do a significant cost reduction with the help of these technologies right here in these United States.
Yeah.
That's a thought I will end you all with, and I hope some of you think seriously about that.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. That's a good way to start 2024 as we record this. And yeah, we'll check back in a year or two. I agree with you. There's a lot of potential. And I think there's more reality behind AI than hype. So we just need now to execute it. So Deb, thank you so much for being part of EDTalks.
Thank you so much, Ed. You have a wonderful 2024 ahead.
All right. Thanks everyone for being part of our program and for tuning in.